Hi there, my name is Benji Rosenberg, and in this presentation, I will be discussing the research I have done so far to create and answer different research questions in the field of sports management. These are the three research questions that I comprised when I began studying this topic. Originally, I chose to write about whether or not college athletes should be paid, and what went into that decision. However, I revised it and instead decided to look into why the NCAA has been able to avoid paying these young athletes, when there have been a plethora of lawsuits as well as countless logistical reasons for why they should be paying them. My research question is, how does the NCAA get away with not paying college athletes? So where does the money go? One of the first questions that people ask about when discussing this topic is where the money goes. As we can see in this pie chart, less than 25% of the money returns to the students, and even the money that does return to them is not collectively helpful, as it will only benefit some students. Although other percentages of money indirectly return to the students, it is clear that there is an ample amount of money that could be given to these student athletes. In my dialogue of sources, the main focus was figuring out why college athletes were not paid, while also taking a look at why they should be paid by the NCAA. Some of the big points that were brought up were that students can basically form a union, as well as the fact that they bring in a lot of money and are valued quite highly economically due to their media draw and ticket sales. However, it has also been found that the NCAA has been able to avoid confronting these reasons. David J. Barry confirms that by law, these players are exploited, as they receive less compensation than their economic value. At the same time, he also discusses that because the NCAA has been able to overrule all of this overwhelming evidence brought against them, there must be more going on here. This slide visually explains what was spoken in words on the last slide. Using a synthesis tree, it shows where each researcher lies and how they affiliate their stances and beliefs on the topic. As you can see, although David J. Barry agrees on some terms with Justin Cook, he still believes that there is more to be discovered on this complex topic, and that the students are not simply just exploited. Meanwhile, K.J. Cooper believes that students should be able to unionize, and that's his reasoning. So what's missing? My research is going to help fill in the blanks that were left empty in the dialogue of sources. For example, it will determine what the NCAA has actually done to avoid the predicaments that they have gotten themselves into in the court of law. Additionally, it is illegal for organizations outside of sports to work together to limit the pay of their employees. In this case, the employees are the students and the organizations are the NCAA and the universities. There are a lot more questions that need to be answered, and therefore much more research that must be done to find these answers. The three big questions that need to be answered are the following. How has the NCAA handled all of the outrage and arguments that are not in their favor? How are they bypassing the law? And lastly, what should the consequences be for illegally hurdling these obstacles for so long? Although this research does not seem that it would apply to larger communities as a whole, it does. College athletics do not only take place at the big, more well-known national schools. They take place everywhere, including smaller schools like Wayne State University or Oakland University. Therefore, college athletes being paid would have a big impact on the way that the local budgeting is done, as well as how the school must perform economically to stay afloat. Additionally, it is impactful to learn how the NCAA has had to avoid these problems at both bigger schools and large communities versus smaller schools and smaller communities. Learning the differences between how this lack of pay looks on a larger scale and smaller scale can prove to be very beneficial in answering my research question. Here's my works cited, and thank you for listening.